Welcome to Boxcars, Warmachine and Hordes supplementary podcast for War Room PL YouTube channel.
So, welcome to episode 15 of Boxcars. I am Marcin and I play Signar.
My name is Rafał and I play Krix.
So, and we have today a guest host, Jarle, who joined us for our topic today. We'll do Meta Analysys.
Yep, that sounds good.
Yeah. So, Jarle, you do this regularly. For every couple of months, you do this meta-analysis that you put on your blog. courageofcaspia.com for anybody who lives under the rock and doesn't already read it. Then you can go there and check it out. Also, great battle reports that I am a fan of.
Yeah. Both are.
The only thing that I'm really a bit disappointed is that you decrease amount of games you recently play, so I don't have a daily 2 games to read. It used to be so nice. Every breakfast or in the evening, I would sit down, read 2 battles from Jarle, and then go to sleep.
Yeah, I had a pretty volume of games for a while.
Yeah, you had that was I think quite crazy. But everybody needs to rest every now and then, so I can understand that.
Yeah, that's normal.
Exactly. So let's start off with why to make meta-analysis and what should it probably include.
Sure. So. I've been doing this for, I don't know, maybe half a year. It started out with something I just did for myself, try and get an overview of what exists. And then I found that when I didn't make a blog post, if I just had a mental list or maybe I made something quick in War Room, it was easy for me to lose overview of what was in the meta, and thus it was kind of hard to rationalize what I should bring. So I found that by making the meta post, I could make it a lot easier for myself to analyze how I build my own pair. Because I was forced to write down specific lists and then think about them, think about variations of them, and then ask myself, can I deal with this? Can I deal with this, etc. On top of that, I found that the meta post analysis generates a lot of interest from other players. I get their opinions on Facebook, on Twitter, as comments on the blog, and that generates a lot of discussions. Unknown lists are pointed out to me. People, usually the ones who disagree are the loudest, which is good because then I learn even more. Of course, if they have some valuable input, sometimes they just make me laugh. Like, not the one I wrote now, but the one I wrote a couple of months back. One of the replies was, "You don't know what you're talking about, shut up."
That's very constructive.
Yeah, let's fight over the internet.
Yeah, and it gives me a pretty good tool to start discussions with people with. When you want a dojo, and they say that, oh, Krix is so bad, for example, how can I deal with Krix? And then I'm like, okay, so what do you mean by Krix? Are these lists fine? And then I send them the meta post, and they'll look at them, and either they're pretty similar, and then we can go from there, or they're not, and they can describe what the differences are. And I find that a lot of the time, especially when the lists in the meta posts are criticized, it's a matter of people not having experience with them. At the very beginning, I received a lot of criticism about Makeda 2 Double Kit Kat because people told me nobody played them, and I said, well, maybe people should start playing them, and now half a year later, everybody's playing them because it's a great list, right?
It is.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time it's about actually trying stuff out before you judge it. And likewise, when I get input, I try to keep an open mind about it and think that this is interesting. I need to try this out before I decide whether to discard it or whether to go with it for the next meta post, which does happen a lot. I think my last meta post back in March was missing Ghost Fleet, and that was the most common reply I got from people, that why don't you have Ghost Fleet? And with that volume of replies, I kind of realized that I needed to play against Ghost Fleet. And I did for a few games, and I realized Ghost Fleet's pretty strong, so now it's in the meta post.
Yes.
Okay.
What the meta post should include, that kind of depends on what you want with it. I include the faction rankings partially to sort of prioritize what I need to prepare against. I usually start at the top, and if I have, let's say I have one caster and one list written in stone, and then I'm considering the second caster and the second list, and I don't really know what to go for, then I can look at my own analysis and I can see what factions I fear the most, and then tool the second list thereafter. For example, before the Swedish Masters, I was struggling with variants of Legion and variants of Circle, and I considered them both to be pretty high up back then in terms of faction ranking. So Sloan was a pretty obvious choice for me to go with.
Yeah.
Whereas Sloan doesn't really solve other problems which my pairing had, which includes, for example, Cephalix and Ghost Fleet. So had I known back then that Ghost Fleet was as strong as it is, I probably would have tweaked at least one of my lists more to deal with it better.
Okay.
And I think it's important, like the faction rankings, they aren't a necessity per se, and they're always up for debate. They do generate a lot of debate, though, but I think you need the specific lists, because I've found that's the only way you can really use it as a tool. You know, I don't just write the post and leave it there. I often reference it myself. I go through it and I look at the specific lists and think about, try and visualize how games against them would evolve. So I think that's about the only must-have.
Okay. I think what is funny about faction ranking is that it's always not maybe objective. It's a strong. It's not
It's
correct word.
subjective.
Yeah, but I mean it's subjective, but due to the popularity of the certain factions. Because if something was less popular, then certain factions were higher or lower in your ranking. But if, let's say, Kriegs is an easy example. So if the Kriegs goes up in popularity, I mean, it will show itself more in the tournaments, then certain factions will be lower, and the trolls will be as bad as meat. And certain factions that are better coping with Kriegs can be higher due to that. And
Yep.
That's one of the reasons why is it fluid. I think so. It goes ups and downs because not always the releases of the new models decide whether the things are good or bad for the certain faction. So I wonder, because do we start? I mean, going on?
Yeah, just a second, because the analysis that you do, Jarle, is quite international. It's not analysis that you do for your local meta or even your country meta. It's for international European or maybe even worldwide meta, right?
Yes, I try to the extent that I'm capable, make worldwide meta sort of thing, which is, of course, by definition impossible. But the setting I'm trying to create for myself mentally is that if I go to a tournament tomorrow and I expect the world's best player of each faction to be present, what would I have brought if I played those factions, you know?
Exactly.
So like, there's no bullshit lists. It's all in it to win it, and there are good people with experience. And of course, I'm not nearly as good at analyzing what makes a good minions list as I am at analyzing what makes a good Signar list. So a lot of it will be lackluster, and of course all of it will be biased based on my experiences. But it's the best I've got, and it's a trade-off, because I don't want to spend too much time doing those pieces, because at the end of the day, you have to play games as well, and analysis like that takes a lot of time, the way it is already.
Yeah, it does. What I'm hinting at is if anybody uses your post and is preparing, for example, for his own local tournament, then he should view that through his known local meta. Like, for example, if he doesn't have a good signal player, he knows it's just a beginner or somebody that doesn't just play casually, he should not consider that special signal drop if he knows he can handle the signal. So, but if you go true. We go to a lot of national or international tournaments, then you never know when Tom Guan will show up. So you should be prepared for everybody.
You never know what army Tom Guan has bought in the last week. So yeah,
that's true as well. Yeah, exactly. So you have to be prepared for Tom Guan showing up with any faction. So any list. So I do also kind of analysis like you do before every big tournament. I just do it in Excel because I love Excel, and put my points down, how I can handle certain casters in certain lists, and then choose my pairings out of a couple of casters that I know best. So So this is a good tip for anyone who is preparing himself seriously for tournaments to do something like this for himself and his pair.
I think mostly it is the most mileage you would get of this those rankings when you are going to the international tournament, because Jarle is well known to check the meta, let's say, at least in Europe. So you can for sure meet like 60-70% of those lists on such a tournament, and even more sometimes. But local metas are really crazy sometimes. So
I should note that. Marcin, you started talking about it. If you are doing an analysis like this for your local meta, then you can basically cut out entire factions, either because nobody plays them or the only one who plays them are beginners. Likewise, you might ditch some lists because you know nobody's going to turn up with card 7-9 heavies because nobody has card 7-9 heavies, and maybe you enter your own list instead. But I don't really analyze for local events, and I don't think I have for a very, very long time, because at any point in time, people can switch it up. And if you try to tool too hard against what you expect people to play and just disregard something completely, you could be in for something bad. On top of that, at least where I am now, I'm not really concerned with small local events. I'd rather spend a couple of more months preparing for Iron Moot, because doing well at Iron Moot is a lot more important for me than doing well at a local steamroller. I'd rather lose horribly at a steamroller event in Oslo if that allowed me to learn something about my intended pairing for Iron Moot, for example.
Yeah, I think the same. If I'm preparing for a big event, then I have my pair, I'm trying to nail down that pair, and I will stress test it against anything. Even if I think I've got a bad matchup, I will take that one caster whole day to see what he can handle, and it doesn't matter what place I am in the end. In local games, but of course it matters for a big event.
At least for me, there are always big events coming up. I plan my year pretty early on, so I'm sure I have a lot of cool events that I'm going to, and they're evenly spread out. Like this year, I had Norwegian Masters in January, SmogCon in February, Swedish Masters in April, team tournaments in Oslo now in May, and then June, July, sort of chilled months, just lots of practice games. then Armut in August, WTC in September, and then ClogCon again in November. So there's always another big thing just a couple of months around the corner. And I think you really need at least 2 months to properly prepare for an event.
Yeah. So I think we can drop a line about Norwegian Masters, because I know there is a date already for next year. It's also January, right?
Yes, that is correct. The dates for Norwegian Masters next year are January 12th to January 14th. It's going to be a 3-day convention-style event, which you can read about on conquest.2d6.no. It's going to be great. You should be there.
Yeah, I think I'm planning. The problem is that I think in Poland they want to, or last year they made a tournament in Warsaw Masters, and because we are competing in the Polish league, it's important to be at a few of those events. So, but I have it pinned in my calendar as a important point for next year. And if it doesn't collide with any other tournament, then I'm going for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm taking Rafa with me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, somebody has to, organize the Skype.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Steve Jobs. Thank you. Anyway, so I think that we can slowly start with
Let's start with the factions.
Let's go through the factions, the order that you made.
Yeah.
So with the tier ranking, let's say.
So for anybody, just one more time, for anybody who wants to follow while listening with the list and the ranking, etc., go to the courageofcaspia.com and you can find the post, and just we'll be going down with the post with the list and our commentary on it.
Yeah, a little tip: if you go to my blog on courageofcaspia.com, and you can see on the right side there's a column which says tags. If you click on the analysis link there, you will find the meta post at the very top, so you don't have to scroll through a lot of battle reports and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Or you can read the battle reports and then faction rankings.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I have one question that I didn't ask during the prepare time. Because we will be talking about the article, that's for sure, but do we put ourselves notes on the how it will look like in 2017 Steamroller, or we just do it at the end? What do you guys think would be? Yeah.
The meta post is based on SR 2017. Okay. But we don't necessarily have to discuss that, I think, as part of the faction rankings.
But on the other hand, I think it will be more interesting for our listeners that we do it, let's say, not for the 2017 Steamroller. So I think, what do you think, guys?
We can talk about differences, etc. At the end.
Okay.
Sure. We'll continue with the faction ranking and the faction specific lists as well.
Sure. Okay.
Well, I think we'll not read the exact list because it will take a lot of time. Then everybody can read the list exactly, but we will just point the casters and their strengths, weaknesses, maybe.
Sure.
So yeah.
So
faction ranking. So there are 4 factions as an S tier. It's Signar, Kriegs, Kader, and Mercenaries. And I think it's a recent addition of Kriegs, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
and Legion dropped down.
And Kriegs is because of the Ghost Fleet.
Yep.
As we can see on some major tournaments happening all around the world, it's getting to the finals or winning. So of course there are very good players involved, but it wasn't happening before the Ghost Fleet was the thing.
True.
Yeah.
So one question: why did Legion drop? Because Legion dropped 1 spot to A tier. In A tier we have Legion, Retribution, Convergence, and Scorn.
Yep. Legion was crazy when Oracles came out because they could make some really terrifying lists. But then it turned out that those lists, although they were crazy, a lot of the other top factions had pretty good answers for them. Okay. And on top of that, Legion has a big problem against Ghost Fleets. I have yet to see a Legion list which is directly good against Ghost Fleet.
But don't you think that if there is a standard Ghost Fleet list with the Negra, the best solution for Legion would be to try to assassinate her? I mean, it's not easy, but it's manageable because the biggest, let's say, favor of the Negra, so the stealth, will be negated, and Legion is famous for long reach with their assassination. So,
but why would you play the Negra into Legion when you can play? That's like asking me if I think Sloan is good into, I don't know, Protectorate. They can sing Passage and good game.
But I don't think that, because I played both of those lists, and even though I like Terminus because he's so easy to operate, let's say, I think that in the bigger tournament the Negra is still better, and then it really depends what is your second list concerning the Legion drop.
Yeah, and that's a problem with this meta post, because in this meta post I am not addressing the Bane theme, which is of course right around the corner. Yeah. So by Iron Moot, for example, I am sure most Crix pairings will be Ghost Fleet and the Bane theme pairing. So you can't afford to take the Negra one in Ghost Fleet and Covenant Ghost Fleet, which I think is the optimal choice right now. So that will affect the dynamics, but it'll affect it too much for me to be able to say right now how it'll change things. So, and that's a weakness you'll always have with a meta post, because a week or maybe 2 weeks later, it might be outdated because something new's come along. And as you mentioned earlier, that'll completely change the dynamics of the game.
Yeah, I think I just wonder, for example, the latest news, so the Protectorate list, Team Force that become official now. Yeah. I wonder if it will it will make certain matchups for Protectorate better, and I just wonder if, for example, this Team Force won't be better against Signar. But let's do it maybe by the book, so because we are going sideways.
Yeah, so we'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a Signar first, and we
still have B tier and C tier. So A tier, I mentioned B tier is Circle and Protectorate, which is I'm a bit surprised that Circle dropped to B tier. And C tier is self-explanatory, it's minions and trollbloods.
Yep.
Okay. Just tell me why Circle in B tier.
Okay, we can start with Circle. I think Circle has the single problem right now that their lists are too specialized. In local metas, where Circle players don't have to consider every possible pairing, they're probably a lot stronger because they can answer almost anything, but they cannot answer everything at once, which is their main problem right now. So I've found that whatever pairing you build with Circle, you will have some gaping holes, and probably a lot of those gaping holes come from the S and the A tier factions, which is really, really bad, assuming they're all present in the hands of a capable player.
So to sum up, it means Circle cannot have all the answer in a two list pair in two lists. Yeah. Could they make it in three list format?
I have no idea. I haven't analyzed that.
All right. Okay, so let's start with faction casters like you have it on the post. So Signar first. You posted 3
Is it a coincidence?
No, the Signar is always first.
I placed Signar first. One word about the tiers. The tiers have the factions listed in the order I think they are right now.
Okay.
So it's not random. I think Signar is the strongest right now, and I think The difference between, for example, Scorn and Circle is minimal. I just had to put the line somewhere.
Yeah. Draw a line somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do the signal.
Yeah, but in general, because they are ranked, that doesn't mean that a good player with Legion cannot beat Signar, or the hole between Legion and Signar is so big that you need a master behind Legion steer to beat a Signar player, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
The differences between the tiers are minimal. And there are some strengths and weaknesses across the tiers which don't really show here. For example, I think Convergence right now is naturally a strong counter to Signar, and by the rank, Convergence is of course a lot lower than Signar, but that's just the nature of the matchup. And the reason Convergence is lower than Signar is of course because they have a lot of other matchups which I think are really bad for them.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so Signal. We've got Haley 2, Sloan, and Kane 3 with the list examples. And you also mentioned a few others, Haley 3 and Nemo 3 as possible, and Striker 1, of course, as possible casters to include.
Yes. I think you can expect to see so many different Signar pairings these days. Nemo 1 is for some reason gaining a lot of traction.
Yeah.
I just don't see it, but that's just me. And I think Darius might still be playable. He's a hard caster to face in the mirror, for example. And of course, the 6 I already listed. So with Signar in the meta post, it was more about making it short. Again, I want to use this as a tool, and if I have to list every possible list with every viable caster for all factions, the post would go on forever and ever. So I took Halo 2 and Sloan because I think they're the strongest. They also appear to be the most common ones, I believe. And then I included Kane 3 because he is the new hotness, which definitely is a thing.
Yeah, sure.
And he's just crazy. I mean, I spent a lot of time dojoing him, and I just couldn't make anything work that I liked on paper. And then Marcin came along with a list. I didn't really like how the list looked, but I thought, oh, well, might as well try it out. And I was blown away by how crazy it was. It's so hard to tell how strong that list is without putting it on the tabletop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've killed Ostrom in cover with 2 camp and feet and 3 models blocking line of sight with 2 chargers yet to activate. It's like, yeah, it's just crazy.
It's just and the best thing is we as a Signal players don't see how strong Kane 3 is, but look at the opponent. He will just look at him and a couple of chargers, a weak caster and a hurricane. I can deal with this, and then he puts himself within 19 inches of Kane and he dies.
Yep. Yeah. Pew pew.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. So that's generally what you can expect. If you go to a big tournament and you meet a Signal player, you'll probably meet one of those lists there are many variations on each of them, but you listed the most popular ones as well.
Yeah. I think the most what should I say? The most common trait across multiple Signar casters is that the vast majority of them will have the heavy metal theme force in a class.
Exactly. And what I think that the more I think about the theme forces of Signar, they are showing their time now. Because I remember when the Storm Division was hotness and heavy metal was not popular, then heavy metal took over, let's say, partly because I think new steamroller and new terrain rules and the weakness of Storm Division there. But when you see the new lists, the new theme forces that they are showing, and the Signar ones, they are the most straightforward, I would say. And because the idea of blessed, or the idea of additional recursion, or the taking out the advanced deployment in the Cador one, it's like it introduces a new level of, let's say, tweaking of the meta, of the lists, of the faction as itself. And Signal is, some more points, because the Storm Division is the bonus is electrical immunity, and it's most important in the mirror. And in heavy metal, you've got increased by 2 inches the deployment, right?
Yeah. Yes. And reposition on the solos.
Yeah. So this is. But do you think that any of those bonuses are as strong as +1 to starting roll, or taking out the AD?
I don't think taking out AD is that important, but then again, I don't think that AD is that important for a lot of the meta lists, I guess. I don't see which lists really rely on AD. You might think Sloan does, but I think she's fine without. The +2 deployment is huge. I think I would prefer it to +1 to start, actually, for heavy metal specifically.
Yeah, I love that bonus. This is so good.
Yeah, +2 inches deployment is, I don't know, whenever I don't play heavy metal now, I get depressed because I have to deploy so far away. It's like, I had this game a couple of weeks ago. We're just drinking beer at the club and kept playing games, and I got to play all kinds of crazy lists. I played Twins, I played Abbey 2, I played Ostrom, and I one-shot Serial with Decap. That was awesome. Anyway, I was playing this game where I went second, and I didn't move my caster turn 1, and I didn't move him turn 2, and then I killed box myself. I'm like, what? I should be 12 inches from the line now. Sad face, I was only 10 inches from back.
Yeah, but yeah, that's true. That's like I'm so sad when I'm not starting with the Ghost Fleet. Yeah, I mean it's.
But the thing of it is that +1 to start makes you 2/3 to win the roll off.
Yeah.
And by default you're 50-50. So in the course of 6 games, instead of winning 3, you will win 4. Which really isn't all that much compared to +2 inches, which has an effect in every single game, as opposed to changing 1 out of 6 games, which is essentially what +1 does.
Yeah, but technically +2 is always better, because it's for sure, right? So, like you said. But sometimes, yeah, but like with every roll and every game, the luck is involved, so yeah, it's right.
Yep.
I would also prefer to have +2, I think. But this is how they did it, and when you get something for free, you put more, let's say, power into that than it really is. So you make out of this +1, you make a big bonus, and in reality you can roll 1, and the other guy can roll 5, and it really doesn't matter what. But still, you always think that you will be starting when you have +1, and it's not the case.
Yeah, actually, I would like to have both in my team.
I would like to have +2 to start and +4 inches deployment.
That's the new trencher team coming. That's coming.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, with the bunker that is shooting people.
Yes.
Okay. So the next section is Crix.
Yep.
And we've got 2 lists. They are both Ghost Fleet. One is the Negra one, and the other one is Coven. And I suppose they are. The Coven is sort of when I look at that, because it's really similar. But I understand that the choice of Coven is because it's more resilient to the assassination.
It's more resilient to assassination, and it blocks off a couple of weaknesses, which the Negra has, as you mentioned. The loss denial is a big deal.
Yeah.
And you lose out some punch in melee because you obviously don't have the Negra feat and Parasite combination. But in return, you get a lot more tricks. You get Veil of Mists, which is a really annoying spell to play against. You gain Ghost Walk, which can be good for the Revenant crew. Sorry, the Negra has Ghost Walk, never mind that. But I think the biggest part is the feat. If you don't want to play the Negra because you're scared about assassination, or if you're worried about your opponent simply shooting your pirates out of the sky, which can happen in some cases, then Coven's the way to go.
Okay.
So I think in most matchups you'll drop the Negra, and Coven's basically there to take on the few matchups.
Fail safe. And I played with Coven, and I played with the Terminus version. Right.
Yeah. The Terminus is another one worth to mention that is also appearing with Ghost Fleet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that which Coven, which Coven is sort of like Haley free in Kriegs. So which Coven, because if you really master which Coven, and in my opinion, if you really master Haley 3, then you will be winning much more than it looks at the first sight, when you look first time at your list, or your opponent looks at the first time of your list.
I agree.
The four activations of Witch Coven and the flexibility of Haley 3, it's really amazing. But both times you can lose on clock, and sometimes that's why they are not making into the pair. But I think they are the best caster in Kriegs, because 3 caster activations per turn, it's something out of... And they will be very good in 2017 Steamroller also.
The only thing I keep on thinking is, goddamn, I would like to fight Witch Coven with K3. I could kill it so easily, shooting Egregor. Oh my god, that's my wet dream now.
But the thing is, you play Signar, you're not going to get Coven, you're going to get the Negra 1.
Yeah.
Yes,
most of the time.
It's unfortunate. But
I think
it's playable either way.
As I wrote in the blog post, I don't think analyzing Kriegs is that interesting these days, because it's all about Ghost Fleet. Give it another month or two, and they'll have more themes out and changes to the Banes, and I think we'll see a lot more varied Kriegs pairings.
Yeah, I think that the 100, like you said before, 100% pairing will be Banes and Ghost Fleet, because I just wonder one thing. If the Ghost Fleet becomes so popular, and because people are asking in the Kriegs group on Facebook all the time about how to play, what to do against, how to solve the problems with Ghost Fleet and so on, I wonder if the meta won't prepare so much for the Ghost Fleet that it will be, like, let's say, Storm Vision, Lances, or some other things that are coming out of the meta right now.
It will. It was just like with Lances were dominating everything, so meta switched to be prepared against Lances. So the same will happen with Ghost Fleet, because it's more sick than Lances are everywhere.
Yeah, sure.
I've been saying for I don't even know how long that Storm Lances are overrated, and I keep saying that because Storm Lances are, at the end of the day, fairly easy to kill if you can get your hand on them, and that is a big problem in the current game. If you tried to play Haley 2 Storm Division against Vlad 1, for example, you would be in for a sad time. It's just miserable. And I don't know if Ghost Fleet Revenants have any kind of weakness which is sort of the same, because Lances can be tooled against, and I'm not sure if you can tool against Revenants in the same way due to how recursion works in Ghost Fleet and how strong their synergies are with the debuffs.
Yeah, I think that Ghost Fleet, when I look at that, because I'm wondering if it will be, still the chic list in tricks at the WTC, I think that the Ghost Fleet, maybe in the Negra way, or maybe in Coven, can become a sort of like Kriegs Haley to, it's less dependent on the caster and more dependent on the idea of the list, because it really emphasizes the Kriegs way of playing, right? So, and that people coming at you and killing and standing back and so on and so on. So I think that Ghost Fleet has the potential for this, that you won't be ever and always prepared 100%. There are some hard counters to that, no problem. But all in all, it's one of those lists, so that can maybe stay for a long time. But you talked about the Cador, so I think we can go to Cador. and the rockets.
Khador Pew Pew.
Khador rocket faction.
Khador
Panzerfaust faction.
In a very, very interesting spot right now, because before Ghost Fleet started becoming a thing, I think their optimal pair was pretty obvious. You had an arm skew variant and you had a shooty variant. And I'm not sure Kharchev was necessarily the best arm skew variant. I saw a lot of people playing a lot of different things, from Butcher 1 quadruple devastators to Butcher 3 with lots of heavies, etc. Mm-hmm. But now they suddenly find themselves in a difficult spot, because what on earth does Khador do against Ghost Fleet? I mean, a lot of their casters just have zero answers to the Wraith engine, right? So the Wraith engine can literally just run up for 2 or 3 turns, position itself close to the caster, and then you can just kill him. Yeah. And there's very little a lot of their popular casters and lists can do about that. So I think Khador right now either has to come up with a new way to deal with Ghost Fleets, or they're going to be strong against every faction in the game except for Krix, which they'll auto-lose against, which is a big issue for them. I think that one of Khador's biggest strengths is that they can build a really, really stable list basis, I should say, which is basically this Vlad 1 list, and they can play with Vlad 1, Butcher 3, Sorsha 1, depending on what the meta needs them to do. And that's a terrifying list to play. I mean, the Vlad 1 list is really hard to play against a Signar, and I mean, if you have a list that's good into Signar, that's a pretty good place to start with a pairing these days.
I think the most, because I have a friend that is playing this list, preparing for some major tournament, and the biggest pro of this list is how easy you can handle that, and it's so amazing, because you put some input with the dice rolls and you get results that are almost always satisfactory. So you don't have this feeling that you are doing something wrong, you are not discouraged or so on, and you just, you roll over people with rockets, and we tested 12 rocket version, 15 rocket version, and I mean, it's so solid, because it's except the lack of magical weapons, that it can really steamroll. I was amazed when I saw the game playing this list against Legion, and it was just, I thought that Ostrom is shooting. No. Ostrom is not shooting into Legion. Vlad 1 is just wasting Legion out of the table, okay?
Yeah.
So,
Silent Portents is a 6 spell. This should not be there. Or should be more expensive or whatever. But truly, but they have a new solo, right? That if he has a Jack under him, is a Jack Marshall. If he marshals a Jack, that Jack has magical weapons.
Yeah. And blessed.
But that, I don't know, that feels bad. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Kharchev can play against Ghost Fleet. It's probably going to be a hard matchup, but it's going to be hard for both sides, because how does even Denegra 1 chew through that much armor with a Devastators in front? Yeah. And on his feet, everything goes magical, and he has a magical spray, so... And of course, he's really, really hard to kill, which comes in handy against Ghost Fleet.
Yeah. I tried, 2 times, and usually, both times I managed to kill him, not leaving his army alone. But it was just like the last shot, and it was luck involved and things like that. I think if you are playing Ghost Fleet into the Kharchev, you should do two rounds assassination, because the Negra because you won't be charged, so the Negra can play up front, and with the -2 to speed, even with those rolled towards things and other ways of speeding up the Jacks, she's pretty safe. So I think it's better to do it that way than to try to attrition out the Kharchev list.
Exactly. And at that point, it becomes a question of how can Khador play to avoid Kharchev dying. I mean, it sounds pretty ridiculous. It should definitely be doable, right? But it comes down to matchup experience, and I have never played Kharchev into Ghostfleet. I have not seen that matchup played out, I think. But again, here it's a bit of a snapshot situation because in another month the Bane theme will be out, and I don't think I'm going to play Kharchev.
Yeah, Kharchev will cease to exist.
Yeah.
Because this is the reason why Kader was not playing heavy jacks in MK2, right? Because Banes existed. And
basically.
So yeah, we will see that. But we tried in Poland some Zerkova variants and still Legion, like you wrote, and it's really, I mean, it's almost the same in idea as Vlad 1, but it plays totally different, but in a sort of similar way. So making a pairing of Zerkova and Vlad 1 is not really good because you have a different list, but doing at the end almost the same.
Yeah, the same problems.
Yeah. And that's why I think Kader's in a great spot, because they have so many different approaches. I think they're the only faction where you seriously consider all three themes, for example, which is a great start.
Yeah.
And the lists are so different. I mean, if you go Butcher 3 and take Ruin, then suddenly you don't have this huge gaping hole with lack of magical weapons against Krix. Both Ruin and Butcher personally are terrifying for incorporeal stuff to get close to. And then there's, Zerkova 1 Steel Legion, which we talked about, just spamming lay troops and hiding them behind clouds.
Yeah.
I've seen people experiment with Vlad 2 and Steel Legion to take advantage of his feats and models being able to boost with his focus. What's up with that? Seriously. And, yeah, and of course Vlad 1, Sorsha 1, a lot of great options for Kader right now, and that's why I have them at the top, even though they seem to be struggling a bit with Krix these days, because I'm sure there's an answer there somewhere, and I'm sure they can build a solid pairing because they just answer so many of the other factions in this game.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry about the noise in the background. Rafał lives near the...
It's not me this time, okay? I live by the church, but it's not me this time.
No, it's not me. The clock is...
Oh, it's your clock.
Yeah, okay. Or my mother's clock. I'm visiting her.
Okay, so the next... oh my god, it's getting late for me. The next faction is Mercenaries, and this is something that I'm not agreeing totally as S-tier faction, but okay.
It's the weakest one of the S tiers, and again, it boils down to being able to handle a lot of the current lists and the meta. Bear in mind that this is SR 2017, which I think makes Texas a lot stronger, because he cannot be pushed out of scenario as easily as he could in 2016. I also think that Ostrom is still a great caster, which has game into so many lists. My main worry with Mercs is how they will deal with the upcoming changes more than anything. I think right now they're still one of the top factions.
Yeah, right now, I think, but from one of the reasons why I stopped playing Mercenaries was that I was expecting that people would be so teched against Ostrom, and that will be difficult to play with him. Because he is a solver of certain matchups in Mercs, like Legion, like sort of Circle, those most popular lists. Also Kader, unless they spam a lot of jacks and things like that. But for example, Vlad 1 or Kharchev are no go. Also part of Signal is also no go for Ostrom. So yeah, I think that Texas is okay. Texas will be more popular than ever. I think Damiano will be also very popular, and McBain, because they are very similar. They play differently, but McBain and Damiano are sort of the same list in a different style.
I think you're correct. I think Ostrom will fall out of favor because he is no longer ahead of the curve. His shooting is not what it used to be, and a lot of factions can, quite frankly, outshoot him. And at that point in time, he's just having a sad time. So I think you're correct that Texas will be the most popular caster, and I can see Texas pairing with Damiano, for example, to be the new Merc pairing going forwards. So yeah, I'm interested to see where it all lands up. The problem with that is that I think that Signar lists will gravitate with at least one list having a lot of infantry clear shooting to deal with stuff like Ghost Fleet and the new Shadows of Retribution theme force. And the question is, do you really play Texas Damiano pairing into that kind of Signar list? That feels bad.
Yeah, unless the shooting list won't have a solution for clouds, at least for 1 or 2 turns. And this is also because I suppose that it will always be Kingmaker, so there will be Signar's clouds hiding mercenary army behind. Because I just, coming back to Signar, I wonder if, because Karaslon is sort of a solution for clouds, but besides that, do you have any infantry hate caster that can solve this problem if the list has clouds? I mean, like Zerkova or Damiano?
Well, the usual solution with Haley 2 is go into the cloud and feet, and your opponent will be sad.
Okay.
But on top of that, the current Haley 2 list I'm playing has a lot of lightning generator attacks, so just get wherever in vision and leap off of it.
Okay.
And, I'm not sure how well that works out in practice, but Damiano really does not feel like an answer to Haley 2, I don't think. I struggle to see that.
Okay.
But on the side note, I remember when a few months ago there was a large scream about Ostrom is OP, ban the bunnies, and etc., and then nothing was done about that, and the list fades itself by itself a bit from the.
Yeah, I remember when Ostrom was hard counter for Haley 2. And
yeah, he was so good. Jesus, oh, that was horrifying.
Yeah, but it was the Haley 2 with Storm Lances, right? Not the Haley 2 with in heavy
It was Haley 2 out of theme. That was a big difference.
Yeah.
But I should say that I never thought Ostrom needed a nerf. I thought he was fine all along because he's just one of those elements I think the meta needs. I mean, you need some sort of bad guys which can do one thing and do that one thing really well. And I found games against Ostrom to always be interesting and very rewarding when you could master them. And as far as I could tell, a lot of factions did have the answers available to them. Even back then, they just didn't use them. Sure, he was a hard counter to Haley 2, but he wasn't a sure thing into Haley 3. That was a really close and interesting matchup for all parties involved. Likewise, I think it's really, really good that Ghost Fleet has entered the meta because Krix has been absent for a year, and that just does so much to what people bring because they don't expect the strong debuff casters. And now suddenly Ghost Fleet's back, and everybody has basically forgotten about Krix for an entire year. And guess what? Ghost Fleet is winning things left, right, and center, and I think we just need that back in the game right now, so people don't just focus on the other things, but just remember that there are strong elements from a lot of factions. Likewise, maybe Trollbloods get a huge boost. Like, I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hoping they do. And if they do, I'm sure people will be unprepared for that as well, because right now they're just not something you really consider that much.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, I loved Ostrom back then, and I love Ghost Fleet now, and I'm probably in the minority, but I think it's good for the game to have a kind of variety.
Yeah, because it shakes up.
So the meta is not stagnant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can take any one power element completely out of the game, I think it reduces the complexity, and if you reduce the complexity, the game becomes less interesting, I think. A lot of what I find so interesting about Warmachine is how many different things you can do. I loved Legion getting Oracles of Annihilation because suddenly you had Mark II Legion back with just too many beasts with too high power and too long threat ranges. They were suddenly back in the game again.
Yeah.
So I wish all factions could have something like that. And right now, I think it's better than it's ever been, and that's why I have a total of 8 factions in the SNA tier, with the B tier following closely behind.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that due to there was a big absence in the way of Kriks and the way that they play, and introduction of Kriks and some changes that will be happening. I hope with Troblots and Scorn Theme Forces, it will also shake up the meta. I wonder just before the WTC, and it will be really funny.
Yep.
Okay, so next is Legion, right, Marcin?
Yes, it's Legion. And you listed
Fianna. Your preferred enemy, let's say.
yes. I play Legion for minimum once every 2 weeks, or sometimes every week, and at least 2 games, because my friend Arek is playing Legion, and he's got the most time of everybody to play with me. So you listed Fianna 2 and Apsilonia 2 and Lily 3. So it actually didn't change for a longer time, right? Those 3 casters are preferred casters for Legion. I would say that Twins maybe thanks to JVM's games maybe showing from time to time.
Yeah, I suppose I could give Twins a mention, but outside of JVM, I haven't seen anybody play them and do particularly well in tournaments, so I think it's more about the player than the list per se.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And personally, I think Fianna 2 is highly overrated, to be honest, and I think it's a matter of time before people learn to play against her, and I fear that she'll become a lot worse for Legion. I have found through my practice games against Fianna 2 that it's all about keeping your distance and not committing too heavily on her feet so that bad dice won't mess you up. Because the thing is that in this game, if you want to do work against her on her feet, and you want to do so by committing, you are bound to have some subpar dice rolls. You won't roll average all the time. And when you do, things just get really messy really quick. And I think that's how Fianna 2 wins a lot of games. But as people come to learn that, I think they'll keep their distance more, relying more on shooting where it's not that disastrous if you miss. And also, SR 2017 makes it a lot easier to simply give her table space on her feet turn, back off, and reset.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I played against Fianna a few times, and new Steamroller also places a lot of important terrain in the middle that gives those beasts that fly and have defense 14 usually cover on the approach, and then they can jam you and feed. And then keeping a distance when you are jammed and rely on shooting, this gets very nasty, because you get their feet, their defense 17. If you shoot into melee, it's defense 21.
Yeah, that's not happening.
So if you have to shoot them down, you would have to do a ton of work on their approach, and they can hide just behind buildings or obstructions or woods. If it's aggressive player, and it can make your day very, very bad, very fast. I had such a game with Haley 2, where on the approach I tried to shoot him down, but I didn't manage to do so much work, and then he feated and jammed me, and then I was really sad.
Yep, that does not work. If you play Haley 2 and Fianna 2, you need to keep your distance. And if he jams you, you need to TK your own elements out of melee and then counter feed. Because you just need to weather the feed out. I think that's...
Yeah, but they still have, Seraph, who can then move in closer his elements. Unless, you TK out and then move out of the...
You TK your own models, yes, and then you move them out.
Okay. That's
the tactics to try out.
I just wonder if Veil 2 will be coming back or not, because with her assassination she will be quite a good answer to Kriks, because Kriks can have many shield guards and things like that, but against they have no defense against magical assassination.
Yep, I think Legion's biggest problem right now is dealing with ghost fleets, and I don't see any of the current casters I've listed here being amazing at that. From what Legion players tell me, Veil 2 is not amazing either. If the Negra knows how to play, she'll be fine. She'll just camp and go for a cover piece. Yeah. Also, stealth makes it sort of harder at least. I mean, Veil has crazy angles, but at the end of the day, Ghost Fleet plays really compact, so it can be hard getting an Arcanel within 5 inches.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think Legion boils down to trying to solve Crix. It's kind of like Khador. I'm sure there are answers there somewhere, maybe even Twins as we talked about, but right now, feels like that's Legion's biggest problem. Maybe also Signar still, because Haley 2 seems to shred everything that's not Veil 2, and Sloan is decent into Veil 2, I think, so. And that's mainly why I dropped Legion down a notch. Struggling with both Crix and Signar is a pretty bad place for a faction to start.
Yeah. Okay, because Crix, if there was only one bet matchup, so the Signar, let's say, then they could have been higher, but now with the Crix showing up, then the Legion is getting a little bit lower, because two not preferred matchups is not really good for the S tier faction.
Yep.
Okay, next we've got the Pointy Elves, and in the name of the Retribution of Syra.
Yes. First of all, I'll admit that I haven't played enough games against Ret for a long time. People in Oslo playing Ret have generally swapped to other factions and or gone inactive, so I don't get enough practice against them, which is going to be a problem for me, because with the new team forces, they got a big boost, which they certainly needed.
I think that I have just one notice to say that for me, Red is a really strange faction, because I think when I read the rules and I read all those descriptions of the, let's say, on the cards, I think they're one of the best factions, but they are always lacking players, maybe due to the lack of fluff, or I don't know, strong presence in the fluff. But I always wanted to play Retribution, but I'm not playing that, and I wonder why is it like that.
I think the problem of Retribution is they have so much tech on their stuff, but when you put it on the table, it doesn't perform so well as you would think. And also the player pool. It's not only in Oslo that our players are switching out from Retribution. It's almost like Retribution is a half faction because of not so many casters and not so many releases. Now they got a boost, but maybe some people will go back. But whenever I go to a bigger tournament, there's maximum 1-2 players playing Retribution. So maybe taking against Retribution is not so important because of.
We have one player in Poznan that is really good, and he's playing always run mostly.
Yep.
And it's like facing Haley many times. I mean, in a sort of way.
That's exactly what I'm missing in this list. It's Issyria and
run.
It's run.
Yep.
Because they are really very good casters.
I think
also maybe Kelisa might be as well, but for sure Run and Issyria.
I think it depends on personal preference. I think it's really hard to pair two Forges lists, so it's basically either Virus 2 or Ron, the way I see it. Likewise, I think it's hard to pair double Shadows. I don't think Defenders is quite strong enough. Again, I've only played it like once, and I don't play it that much against Red, but I think most of their pairings will boil down to one Forges and one Shadows pairing. And again, in order to make this short, I just had to make a judgment call, and I think overall Virus 2 is more popular than Ron. Maybe Ron is the stronger choice. I don't know.
But Ron is the same situation, in the same situation as Haley too, and maybe Coven. So it's difficult. It's not easy. With virus, you can just run, feed, try to do damage, survive. And with run, it's like a mathematical equation, sort of like playing Halo 2 for 100% effort. Yeah, that's like maximum effort. So this is the situation with run, because when he plays, he's really a noob scrumper, and it's like he usually finishes in the first 15 minutes, because one small opening and you get killed. Okay, so it's so it really depends on the value of the player and the skill level. So, and about Ocean, I think you are 100% right. We will see with the Mage Hunter Strike Force and the heavy lists and jacks and things like that, we will see a combat of Ocean.
Yeah, but with the Shadows of Retribution, Team Force, both Iseria and Ran are pretty decent.
You think you can play Shadow?
Yeah. Yes, Ran can play Shadows because, of course, he doesn't get much use out of his feet, but then he has in Mage Hunters, and he get like 30 something stealth dudes that can deal both with infantry and jacks. And he himself is a great threat to the caster, because he can TK him, knock him down, and the rest of his force can assassinate him. So this is something I don't know if such a list will be prevalent or will show up in the meta, but I played against Ran in Shadows of the Retribution, and it's pretty scary, and it's pretty good list. Of course, there's ways to solve it, but I think he's better than Ocean, maybe because Ocean can, if he uses his feet and he doesn't kill everything, then he will die.
My main reason for going Ocean here is that our red players think he is the best choice into Ghost Fleets, prior to having tested it out, of course.
Yeah. On the other hand, with a lost blocking terrain in the middle, there is a high chance that Ocean will survive his feed turn, post-feed turn, because he can hide behind it and then feed.
Yeah, Ocean's feed is really good defensively against Ghost Fleet. Because whatever wants to shoot Ocean is 1 dice damage, and that's just sad.
Yeah.
Well,
true.
I listed Ron, Helena, Iseria, and Kalissa as well, and again, a goal of mine here is to keep things short, so just had to choose two, and I think if I were to play red, I'd probably start here. Ron is great, he's very flexible, he has a ton of angles, but he also has big weaknesses. Second something's immune to magic, you're struggling. If something's too tough, you're struggling.
Colossal.
Yeah, Colossal basically messes your day up completely.
And stealth, because he cannot see stealth, and this is also a problem.
So, I don't know. I can definitely see an argument being made for Ron. This is just probably where I see people starting.
I think Ocean is just, if you would start, and if you would use Jarle's ideas, then this is the best start, because they are pretty straightforward, okay? So you can play this list, and even if you are lacking a little bit of our experience, you will manage to get a proper results and get a proper feedback, so you won't be discouraged. And if you want to start with Run, then you will be, you will face many successful counter assassination, I suppose.
Yeah. I also, one of my reasons for including Virus 2 here is also Ben Fusey taking the Dutch Masters with it. I think that was back in March. He had Virus 2, which he dropped in 7 out of 6 games or something.
Okay.
Sorry, 6 out of 7 games.
Yeah, this list is really resilient to shooting,
Nice.
so solves the most prevalent problem, so the shooting problem. Okay.
Just kill virus. It's easier.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's move on to convergence.
Convergence. We in Poland have a good player of convergence, and he's also playing Centurion sometimes at Axis. But the pair that you presented, I think, is the most popular one.
Yeah, I think currently Convergence is in a pretty strong spot. They don't have a lot of flexibility, but then again, they're a tiny faction and they get new releases once every 4 years or something. But the father and mother pairing really handles the current meta quite well, and I think a skilled Convergence player can go up against almost anything.
Yeah.
They do have a couple of weaknesses. I'm not sure what they do against Kharchev. Every game I've seen against Absalonia 2 is really, really hard for them. But they have a lot of strengths as well. They're naturally strong against Ghost Fleet and Signar, for example, which is a great place to start. So I hope more Convergence players will emerge, because kind of like with Ghost Fleet, and as I argued with Ostrom, it's something I think the meta needs. And I also think that if Convergence players, like if we had more of them and more top players in particular, people might notice that things like Haley 2 and Ghost Fleet, they're not unbeatable. You just need the right tools. And having the counters in the meta helps curb their power. Sort of like we talked about Lances, like as soon as counters started appearing, nobody took Storm Division any longer, almost.
Yeah, I think that due to the still novelty and lack of popularity of Convergence, if you are really good at that, you are one of the top S tier I mean, not the players, but you will be treated in the game as S tier faction, because they are lack in the diversity, but they are so strong. I mean,
yeah, and to be honest, most people don't really understand how Convergence works at all.
Yeah.
And you will get so many tricks working that you'll be a hard place to understand it.
Yeah, I have Convergence models, and they are. I don't like the aesthetics. So, but as a challenge and as a let's say looking at the technical side, they are one of the most rewarding, I think, factions to play.
Yeah,
because you can do such a things that are amazing, not available anywhere else.
I've also seen Axis played a bit, by a bit, I mean a lot. But I fail to see how he's better at handling Mother's problematic matchups than Father Locantis. I don't know. Maybe it's just different.
Look at the safer, and this is you need. What I heard recently about the process of making a pairing is that you really need a list that you can play when you are tired and things like that. Okay, or and Lucas is a really good tired player list. I must admit that.
So when he throws deceleration and feats, you just know you're not getting any work done.
Yeah, and here you just show forward two tips, and you start, spraying around, and you are making reflex servitors countercharge the things that want to charge you and try to do some damage and things like that. It's really, yeah, I like this list a lot, honestly. And you have a very good caster that is quite safe against assassination.
Yep.
And this is also very, very important, especially when you are starting the game at 8 p.m.
Sure.
Sure. All right, let's move on to Scorn, because we are somewhere in the middle, and it took us quite a lot of time so far. So I guess we need to skip Scorn and continue on.
No, but Scorn is good.
Scorn is not going to take a long time, because Scorn is Makeda 1, Makeda 2, and Scorn has been Makeda 1 and Makeda 2 for a long time.
Since they were remade. Or even before they were remade.
So the thing is that Scorn has dropped quite a bit, I think. They should perhaps even have been in the B tier, because a lot of factions can answer these quite handily now, and on top of that, Ghost Fleet is really, really strong against Scorn.
Yeah.
So currently the only reason I still have them in the A tier is because these lists are so strong that if you don't have matchup experience against them, they will probably crush you. I mean, the first time you play Kit Kats, you're like, what is this? Are you sure you're not cheating? This is beyond stupid, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Why did I pump 20 boosted POW 12s into your list and
They're on the table.
Don't even get me started. But at the end of the day, I think Scorn players have to look for a shooty variant to deal with what's in the meta, because I don't see any Scorn melee-based list whatsoever dealing with Ghost Fleets. So maybe the Theme Force is the answer. I've only played against that once with Xerxes 2. It's definitely got to be something out there, but the Makedas has to go, and how that will affect Scorn, I have no idea.
We are dodging coming back from Polish Team Championships. We are dodging Scorn for a friend, and he wants to play Kit Kats because they can roll stomp some people, no problem. Yep. And he plays a lot, and he likes the list, and he made a special models for them. But we were testing the Hexeris 1 list, and if you are brave enough and you want to do it properly, you can really, one shot in one turn most of the Ghost Fleet if you do the feat properly.
Which Hexer was this, did you say?
The Hexeris 1.
Hexeris 1, yeah.
That removes from play. The warrior models, unless you outclock yourself in the feature, you can remove the whole Ghost Fleet if you just manage to do it properly. But it's like a Pac-Maning the whole army, and it can take you, 2/3 of your time, I suppose. So,
for sure.
Yeah, but we like the. Yep.
I think that's all there is to say for Scorn. It's all about Makeda now, but they have to come up with something else. And the sooner the better.
Okay. We've got the circle, and this is something that it's really different. Your views are different than the ones in Poland, so I'm really interested. Baldur is the same. Kruger is very good because it's like sort of Haley 2 of circle. But in Poland, people are really playing Morvana 2. And it's Morvana 2.
Morvana 2, yeah. I've seen Morvana 2 as well. I thought it was a Norwegian thing. That's why I didn't include her. But basically what I see with Circle is HeroClix variants. And I think they're bad, and I think Circle needs to move into their tiers, and the theme forces, and explore them more. If I were to play Circle at a tournament tomorrow, just for the sake of argument, I would take Baldur with double big boys and supports, and probably Kruger with double Reeves. I can also see an argument being made for Morvana 2, but I just think Kruger's better into stuff like Ghost Fleet and Legion, where I see Morvana struggling sometimes.
I think that Wormwood still with Hellmouth can try to solve the Ghost Fleet problem.
I can see that possibly being a thing. I guess the question is, how do you keep stuff alive? If he just sets it up properly, it's hard to Hellmouth the shooting things, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Wormwood just seems so much weaker than he was just a few months ago.
But do you think this is due to the nerf or due to the meta adjusting to Wormwood?
I think the concept of Wormwood is too inflexible. It's like he either works or he doesn't. It's surprising, really, because from his skill set, you would think that he's a flexible caster, but in practice, it doesn't seem like it, because whenever it boils down to Wormwood's matchups, and this is how it's always been, I think, he's either up or he's down,
Okay. So he has played against certain factions, but against certain factions he's auto-losing. Sounds like that, right?
Yeah, I think that's my impression anyway. And
I think yeah, go on.
I think if you compare him to Signar, it's kind of like looking at Nemo 3, where you consider pairings for Nemo 3, matchups, and he's either way up or he's way down, He has very few matchups which feel really close.
I think that Wormwood will have a big problem because he cannot win on scenario in 2017, and this will be the major problem for him.
I think Wormwood's out, and I think he's been out for a while. And yeah, SR 2017 is yet another nail in his coffin. But I mean, the feat's amazing. Hellmouth is good. The thingy which creates the forest is super annoying to play against. So there are still tricks there, but Circle right now to me feels like they have all these tricks, and when they're done with all their tricks, they still haven't killed a lot of my models, so I don't really care.
Okay.
That's true enough. Might be, but the double Warmachine.
Signar doesn't like that.
Yeah, I think Signar's fine against double big boy.
Playing on scenario, right? Not.
I'm sorry.
Playing on scenario, or do you
No, you kill them.
Okay.
You play you play Sloan, and then one turn you put 20, 25 bucks to one of them, and then he heals up maybe 10, 12, and then you feat and kill him, and then you have a Colossal against the big boy, and you have more shooting, and you win.
Yeah. Sounds easy. Marcin, do it next time, okay?
No, I will just kill Baldur.
Yeah, that's possible too.
Yeah, that was nice when he put two Wardas in front, and I fitted and killed Baldur with 6 Revenant riflemen. Yeah, that was funny too. Okay, so we have the Protectorate next, and this is, I think, the only faction that has one list.
Yeah, that's correct.
No, Minions have also one list. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, with Protectorate, I just don't think they have any good casters apart from Amon. Right now, by good, I mean amazing. Amon's amazing, and all the other casters in this faction feel subpar. It feels like Amon's really screaming for someone to play with. And on top of that, they have the Exemplar theme coming out, which I think will definitely provide him with a pair, so I expect Protectorate to get a big boost there. Therefore, I didn't bother spending a lot of time analyzing where they are right now.
Okay.
So
they have infantry spam.
The Exemplar Theme Force lists I have seen people experiment with thus far are more oriented with around Jacks than infantry, because Jacks getting blessed is huge. Imagine a Severius 1 shooty build, for example. You have Redeemers with Eye of Menoth for +1/+1, and they're blessed. Yeah. I mean, your Stormwall's not going to like that.
Yeah, I mean, we have
Waldraths, your double big boys, will be sad.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we have, I mean, Redeemer is the one Jack solution for most of the Colossals, let's face it. And Blessed Redeemer with Choir and +1 from Eye of Menoth. Doesn't sound funny, yeah.
And then you hear about people doing Harbinger, unkillable infantry dudes, or even Vessel of Judgment. In short, I think Protectorate's going to be a lot more interesting once the current changes in CID will go official. So that's why I didn't bother. I just listed Amon because Amon's great.
And in Poland we have Severius 2 very popular, and it plays sort of Karchev way, so he has several heavy jacks that can survive quite a lot, and they play long attrition game. I wonder if it will be still a thing in 2017, but for now it's really, really popular. People, it's like one solid caster that every Protectorate player in Poland is playing. It will be Severius 2, not Amon, honestly.
Yeah. It's Oracle Vision if you read.
Sounds interesting. I guess I'll just Haley to it. I never had a problem playing into Series 2 with Haley 2 because her feat's so strong, and Thorn just laughs over Oracular Vision, and at that point it's no fun for Severius any longer.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we've got Minions left and Troubles. So we are coming to the last tier, so to the C tier, right? Am I right?
Yeah, that's great.
So the Minions, let's start with them. Rust, the one solution. And do you think that, because Minions are one of the few factions that has some solutions to Ghost Fleet, because they have some remove from play effects and the caster that can keep Ghost Fleet in the, it's the, not Jaga Jaga, yeah. So, but you cannot tech only for Ghost Fleet, so So maybe it's not the best idea to have a Rask Jaga pair so you can fuck up Ghosted, but Rask is playing everything else.
I don't know minions that well.
Okay.
But I think their problem right now, more than anything, is that nobody seems to have figured out what their thing is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, minions could have some hidden strength that nobody knows about, because honestly, not a lot of people play minions, and it takes a lot of time to uncover the really, really strong builds. I mean, how long did it take for Signar players to find the best Haley 2 heavy metal lists? Took us ages. We were all stuck on Storm Division playing around with noob lances, you know?
Mm-hmm. But this is the...
Exactly.
Yep.
But this is true with minions, because I tried to play minions as a side faction, so to say, but I gave up because I knew how long it took me to know Signar very well, how many games it took, and how many times spent reading battle reports and watching videos, etc. And in minions, you don't even have that backup. You will not find so many games of minions. Not so many people play it. Not so many battle reports exist. So you don't have that help from outside, and you have to figure out everything yourself. And you will not manage to do it as a side faction. So you would have to decide, minions is my thing, I play only minions, and then play like 5 to 10 games every week, and then in a couple of months you will have a strong pair that will be tournament ready. But I don't have time for that. So
I think that minions are...
Minions.
You can compare them sort of to Convergence, but in Convergence you have good items, good models, and not much variation. So at the end you require less time to find the proper pairing. And in Minions you have still quite a lot of models, because they are sort of mercenaries of Hordes. So you have many models, and you can mix and match them, and it will take a long of time. Not many people playing means that's what Marcin said. So I'm sure that if you find a pair, it can really roll stomp many things, because people won't be prepared. And this is also, if you are slowly finishing, this is something that I want to ask. Do you think, guys, that if you test something out in the closet, you say nothing about that, and you test it really thoroughly, can you make a pair that is shocking to everybody in Warmachine? Do you think it's possible? Let's make it one-time wonder. So 1-for-1 tournament. Do you think, or is it better to use the net listing, net wisdom, and everything else that you can get from the internet? What's your opinion?
I mean, I think that both approaches are viable. If I just followed some time ago JVM's appearances on different tournaments, and he's switching casters a lot. He tries to stay out ahead of meta. Admittedly, there are not so many Legion players as well, so I think he tested with his local community, and then show ups at the con and has a pair that nobody seen before, or maybe one caster that it's tried and true, and the second one is completely new. And on the other hand, using a Haley tool is that I have seen played maybe 20 times online, and read maybe a similar amount of battle reports, and added to that my 40 or 50 games. This is also experience you have is enormous, and you don't have to figure out everything yourself. So both approaches, I think, have their plus and minus.
I agree. I think both are viable. At the end of the day, I really value experience, because even if you have experience, your opponent might not, and at that point in time you have a big advantage. Whereas if you try and come up with a dark horse thingy, you don't have experience and your opponent doesn't have experience, so you're more even-ish, right?
Okay.
And I think that even if you net list at least if you start off with a net list and then you try to build from there, you're still going to face players, strong players, which have no idea what to do against you.
Yeah, because not everything is present everywhere. And this is also the thing with the Warmachine.
And I write a lot. I make battle reports from nearly all games I play. And a lot of people read my blog. And despite that, when I go to a big tournament and I blogged about maybe 50 games in preparation, people are still both surprised at what I bring and at how well those lists are doing. So, I mean, if you try and shout to the world, this is what I'm doing, and this is working well, and this is why it's working, and they're still surprised, what's the value of trying to dojo stuff in your basement and be all hush-hush about it? I mean, maybe you can come up with, I don't know, the new Ghost Fleet that nobody's heard about. Maybe Minions or Trollbloods or whatever has this insanely strong list that nobody's simply found yet. Could be, but chances are you'll be spending all those hours in your basement and you'll come up with something that isn't really spectacular to begin with, because if it was, chances are somebody would have found it,
Yeah, that's right.
And that's a big risk to me. And I'm not afraid to experiment, but going all hush, I don't know. Yeah, I think experience at least is the most important part.
Getting a feedback is really important, right? And if the people just look at your list and you are not playing with them, sometimes the ideas, you have this crazy great idea and somebody writes in one sentence and it's over.
Yep.
And there is also one more aspect, because you mentioned that you come to the tournament and play against someone who knows your list because his friend in his local meta is playing the same list or similar, and he says, I know what your list is doing, but then you hit the table and all of a sudden his eyes are wide open and he's starting to cry because he never thought that list could be played this way. Because in the hands of his local player, that list was half as deadly as in your hands. And this is the difference, because the list is just a list, but the player is important, and you never should assume that because it's the same list, it will play the same way. And
that's an important part, I think, because in your practice games, you really have to ask yourself, is this the best play available? And if it's not, then that experience you gain isn't necessarily all that valuable, because it turns out there's an entirely different approach, which is just way better. And then you're going to be at a tournament, as you said, and you're going to cry because you didn't see it coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so only Trollbot left, right? And sad.
Yeah, everybody wants to like them, but
yeah, but there is actually a lot of players playing Trollblood, so it must be something with the faction that they don't perform as other factions do.
I don't get Trollbloods. I never have, and I probably never will. They seem like such a straightforward faction to play. They're slow. They don't have a lot of tricks.
Yeah, but they are resilient, and they have a lot of defensive tech, right?
I don't know. Defensive tech in a world where everything just dies. They still die. Just apply a little more pressure and they'll die. Have you seen Absalonia 2 play against Trollbloods, for example? That's just sad. It's so sad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Vlad 1, Karchev. There are so many things in this game which just have. Halo 2 makes Trollblood so sad. Even Sloan. You can play Sloan into Gunbjorn, and Gunbjorn will feat, and you'll back off, and he'll be sad, and then you kill him the next turn instead. And then start 17 is even better.
My friend who doesn't want to play Trollblods against doesn't want to play Trollblods against the Negra because of crippling grasp. Okay.
And I think that's the main problem of Trollbloods, because if you compare them to I'd like to compare them to Khador, because Khador is another faction which doesn't have a lot of tricks and which also have durable things which have pretty decent damage output, right? But Khador has a few crucial centerpieces which can get work done on their own without support and that are hard to play against. I mean, Rocketeers, they're a pain. And Science Importance is like, oh, +2/+2 for an entire army. Fine, I'll take it. You know?
Yeah, Marauder, for example.
Yeah, and they have these little tricks all baked in here and there, which are really important. Could be Butcher 3's crazy one-man army show. It could be Vlad 1's feet, and suddenly his jacks can jam you 17 inches, and they're still armor 20, and you're going to be sad. It could be Circova 1 suddenly showing up with clouds, and Trollbloods just seem to miss those two crucial aspects from Khador. They don't have any mainstay choices that get a lot of work done offensively, and they don't have a lot of tricks. So they're just this brick with a few defensive capabilities, and if you know how to tear it apart, you'll do so 9 times out of 10. Yeah.
I mean, usually the funny thing is that something that they have that is really strong and resilient doesn't have the damage output. And if something has a damage output, then it isn't not strong or resilient. And due to the point cost, you cannot put everything in the list. And that's, they don't have all-rounder, like you said, one, like a Marauder. You take Marauder and you can run and do anything you want, and it's okay. And if you take the cheap beasts, they can survive, but they don't have any damage output. If you have expensive ones, they can dish out a lot of damage, but they can be shot out of the table. So yeah, you are right.
Yep. I think with Trollbloods, if you want to make their thing work without trying to alter the faction identity, I think you can seriously just shave off 10% of the point costs of every single model in the faction and just see how that plays out. Maybe it'll give them the critical volume to deal with the aggression that exists within all the other factions in this game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if Mode cost 17 instead of 19 and the Mauler would be, 13 or 14 instead of 15, it would be a start, you know. So
I mean, they had there was not so much shooting in Mark II, so they were much better at that time. But now with so much shooting, even if you have 3 or 4 heavy beasts, then if you don't have any defensive tech except armor, they can really be killed during 1 or 2 turns, and this is the problem. And before it was not so easy.
Typically, they don't have enough defensive tech to last outside of feet turns, you know, and in SR 2017, that time walk is going to be worse than it used to be because you're not going to be able to successfully force a scenario win out of it.
Yeah.
So, I think Trollbloods, they're still in a poor, sad place, and they need a buff. PP, please fix Trollbloods.
Yeah, I would like to see that too. Yeah.
Alright, so we arrived at the end of the list. And we took long enough to do it, so I think we can wrap up at that. And maybe in some months we will meet again and have another talk about how
it does change all the time, which is really exciting.
I think that due to our presence at the certain tournament, we can make a fixed date, let's say end of August, to refresh.
After the list will be posted.
Oh yeah, maybe even better like that. Yeah, so we can refresh our views on the list that are present in the current meta.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be interesting if after the WTC lists will be posted and seen by everybody, if the meta will freeze for some time, because even if the new stuff will come out, nobody will concentrate on them. Everybody will be training their own list that they.
Yeah, it will freeze for I think roughly 2 months because you need I mean, by the time you lock the lists, you need to be sure that this is what you want to play.
Yeah.
Which means you need at least a couple of weeks, probably a month, with more or less the identical lists. And then you'll have the time from the list is posted till the tournament's over with, which is another month. And during that time, I think the meta will be about as stable as it can get these days.
Okay.
All right. So thank you, Jarle, for joining us. It was great to talk to you again. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah, that's a wrap. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Boxcars. I hope you liked it. See you soon.
Because I wanted to talk because I was talking with Marcin about the pairings and what we intend to play, because we have 2 or 3 big tournaments coming in Poland right now.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth to record it also. I think it will be better. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think so. We can put. I don't know if we want to put it at the end or at the beginning, because going through the factions is already a big topic. So let's see how much time. Well, are you limited by time, Jarle?
No, I'm good. So we can go on for as long as you want to.
Okay. Probably, hopefully not more than 2 hours, because by then we are a bit wasted.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not limited by the time anyway as well, because I'm on holidays, so I can sleep tomorrow.
Yeah. He's permanent holidaying.
Almost.
Yeah. I'm always jealous, that's why. Anyway, because we were talking about Marcin and your tries to find a Halle 2 matchup for the Ghost Fleet. Honestly.
Ghost Fleet with what, Signar?
I mean, yeah, but with Halle 2. Marcin told me about
how to fight Ghost Fleet with Halle 2. But
you kill ghosts and you win? Well, to be honest, I haven't thought too much about Ghost Fleet recently, because the upcoming Bane theme and the changes to battle engines and, of course, SR 2017 will completely change the game, so...
Yes, you're right. But, no, my conclusion was that I don't think it's necessary, if I may share, it's not necessary to do Halle 2 Ghost Fleet. I mean, to include that into the subject and technology of Halle 2 playing, because I think it's not worth it. Halle 2 is too good, and the second list of the pair can be, let's say, more Ghost Fleet oriented than the Halle 2.
But the problem is, if you tool too much against Ghost Fleet, what does that list look like?
No, I'm not talking about that. I don't think Signar has a specific answer to Ghost Fleet. I mean,
I
you
think
can
Halle
make...
2 is the answer.
Really?
Yeah. I've never lost against Ghost Fleet. Okay. I did play Ghost Fleet in the Swedish Masters finals, for example.
Okay. Yeah, what was standard Ghost Fleet, the Negra one?
Yeah. Double Stalker, double Death Ripper, Wraith Engine stuff.
Okay. And how do you won, if I may ask?
I killed ghosts. Technically, I won on scenario. We played Recon, and I got an opening on one of the flags.
Okay.
My opponent wanted to get aggressive with his Wraith Engine, and then I did my favorite move in this entire game, and that is charging a battle engine and killing it in melee with Halle 2, because power 13 is the thing.
Yeah. But, and then feeding, right?
No, I feeded the turn before, I think.
So
let me just double check.
He couldn't just shut you down?
You can just check the report. Give me a minute and I will find it.
Okay, I can do that too. Just sit in front of my computer. Guys, we have to disconnect, by the way, to check if the audio is okay.
Yeah, I think exactly. So let's disconnect. You can find the reports, and Rafa will call us in.
Yeah, the report is linked now.
Okay, I will check.
Yeah, I'm back again.
Yeah. I checked the report, but are you not? I mean, it won't be easy to win on my scenario 2017.
Nope. But if you take a look at the state of the game towards the end, the game was done on attrition as well.
Okay.
He doesn't have anything left which can deal with a storm wall or all the shooting that's left. Both Chargers are fine, Thorn is fine, both Juniors are fine, Haley is fine.
Okay.
But the thing is, in this game, we both made a number of mistakes because neither of us knew the matchup sufficiently well. And on top of that, I think Haley too can improve on her list significantly without tailoring against Ghost Fleet. But, I mean, it's all out of the window because once the Storm Strider hits, the Haley 2 list will look way, way different. And at that point in time, I think you'll steamroll Ghost Fleet, quite frankly.
Okay.
If you take a look at this list, posting it in the chat now, which is what I'm currently running, I don't see what Ghost Fleet's supposed to do about it. You'll just shred so many ghosts every single turn.
Without, I understand, without any repercussion, right?
Well, he'll get some kind of repercussion, but what's he gonna do? Start killing fireflies with feet?
No,
like,
you'll
he's not gonna kill the Storm Strider. That's just not happening. And he's not getting the Hurricane, so he's basically left with trying to take out lights.
Okay. You are. What is the range that you play against the Negra? I mean, the Heli range. How long? How far do you usually play?
What do you mean, the caster?
Yeah. Do you
She
keep
can
the
play
same?
as far up as she wants. She just has to camp a couple of focus and have force field up, and she's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, true. Haley cannot be knocked down, so there is no easy way for ghost shots to hit her.
Yeah, but -4.
Yeah, okay. You can crippling grasp her and feed. That's -4, so it's defense 12. So the ghost will hit her on 8.
No, you're not going to be able to land crippling grasp because you put the Reliant base to base with a Storm Strider, and then you have Haley behind. So there's no way for Arc Nodes to get line of sight.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe we will meet at Ironwood, so we can check that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do the.
Yeah. I think that we can basically start by talking about why to make such a meta analysis like you do, because I do it myself. I just don't do it. I don't post that meta analysis that I do. I do it myself sometimes, especially before big tournaments. Then so I know if my pair is prepared, etc. So we can talk about that.
Yeah. And
then we can talk for a second about the incoming Steamroller 2017, how we think it will change meta, and then continue on with meta analysis with like you listed, and then we can also comment what we think, etc. So that's that's the basic plan, I think.
That sounds good to me.
All right. Are you arrested? Well,
yeah.
Did you work whole day?
No, there's a holiday in Norway today.
Oh, perfect.
And I took tomorrow off, so I have a long weekend doing nothing.
That means 15 games over the weekend? Over the long weekend?
I'm not at home right now, so I'm not playing today, and I'm not playing tomorrow. Hopefully on Saturday.
Okay.
There's a tournament on Saturday and Sunday, but it's for beginners, so...
You don't want to spoil their fun?
Well, there's no more fun than winning with Haley 2 against noobs and have them rage quit.
You won't have opponents then.
No, to be honest, I think it's good that new players learn the big tricks right out of the gate to realize how complex and how brutal this game can be.
Yeah.
Because eventually you're going to run into it anyway, and if you get lured into the game by playing weak lists and finding that to be fun, then you're doing it on the wrong premises and you're going to rage quit sooner or later anyway. Whereas those that do want to stay and do want to play the game, even though they'll lose, they'll see that, okay, this is really powerful. This game looks cool. I want to learn how I can beat that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's really complicated because I'm always trying to find new persons to play, and it's not easy, I would say.
No, I think the game is so complex that you have to invest a lot of time in it to avoid losing to stupid things all the time. And that's a big entry barrier for a lot of people because they want a more casual game.
I keep on losing against stupid things all the time.
Yeah. A lot of us.
Hopefully in training or in practice games, not on tournaments. Then I'm a bit more concentrated.
Yep. When stuff like that happens in our practice game, we just reset and go with something else.
Yeah.
I also like to give beginners really strong lists if I can choose, so they can see some of the insane things that are possible to do in this game. For example, I gave a beginner Lilith 3 for one of his first games with a maxed out list. This was before Theme Forces. So he had Typhon, Naga, Bolter, Seraph, etc. And he really liked all the angles and the crazy threat ranges he could get with that list. So that kind of made him more interested in the game.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, the problem. I mean, even the strong list can, if you are not, let's say, at least experienced, it can be really not showing its strength, I would say.
For sure. I played Kane 2 against him, and I talked him through all of my tricks. So he kind of understood the balance that he has the mobility and the ranged superiority, but he has to beware of closing in. So that was a pretty good game. I think he won in the end.
Okay. But sometimes we have some new. I mean, we have some colleagues from the other game that we played that moved here, and it's really they are strong, let's say, mentally, so they are not rage quitting. But the ways that you can die in this game is like,
Yep.
Yeah, it's really funny.
It is.
I mean, it's an epitome of the, let's say, tabletop game from one side, but I must admit that I'm really amazed by the popularity of the game in USA, and I think that this is due to the USA origins of this game, and besides, it's played on a different level, I think, there than in Europe.
Yeah. I think there are a lot more casual players in the US than in Europe. It appears that, at least from what I gather, that casual players in Europe rather play other games.
Yeah, I mean, this is the situation, at least in Poland, that we used to have a lot of big tournaments. I mean, many tournaments for the, let's say, battle, Warhammer.
Yep.
And it was like 200 people or things like that. And now currently we have, let's say, 7 or 8 systems, and everybody got 30 persons or something like that. And there is because the pool, the amount of players is limited somehow, and it's not changing rapidly.
No, and various systems are competing with each other.
Yeah.
So I agree, that's a problem.
And have you seen any other system that is interesting?
For me personally?
Yeah.
Nope. I don't even bother reading the rules or... Yeah, I just play Warmachine.
Yeah, me either. There's just no time for spending my attention for more than one thing.
Yeah, but this view is rarely present because most of the people here play, let's say, 2 or 3 systems currently at the same time, and I don't think it's. I mean, depending on what do you want to achieve, let's say. Marcin, maybe we start slowly.
Yes, I think so. Let's begin.
Sure.